Again, since we have a tight schedule today and we are very anxious that we have all the sessions while the delegates are here, the delegates have to leave at 2 o'clock. Therefore, we are going to just push session after session. Whenever you need a cup of tea or coffee, it's ongoing outside. There are cookies, there are sandwiches. Help yourself and come in and take whatever you like because the sessions are going to continue. Our first session on current policies and reforms. So I think, we're just waiting for Secretary Ramesh Abhishek to come in and then we will commence with the other one. In the meantime, we invite Ms. Anita George. She is the Managing Director of CGTQ, one of the biggest pension funds in India, and she has recently taken over on a global scale. Thank you, Anita. She again has to leave early, so I'm just trying to start the session as soon as possible so that we can have it. May I invite Mr. Sudhir Rao, the Managing Director of Bombardier. Mr. Sudhir Rao has also just taken over in his new assignment, and we are very happy that he is here with us. Thank you, Mr. Abhishek. Anyway, thank you so much. Sudhir Rao. Mr. Das Gupta, President, India Power Corporation. Mr. Linda Verma, Partner, KPMG, India, will be moderating the session. I think Sudhir will join as soon as possible. He is already here, but I think he just stepped out. So our first session on current policies and reforms highlights the ease of doing business in India, which is very important at this juncture of India-Canada trade relationship. As my friend Amir Nasir had once said, India is slowly transitioning from red tape to red carpet, and to minimum government, maximum governance. And one of the key people playing a pivotal role in this transformation is Mr. Ramesh Abhishek, Secretary, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. We are very happy to and fortunate to have him here with us, and especially to all the delegates, because he will be able to tell you what is the current status and remove a bit of the fear from the Canadians about doing business in India. I hand it over to Nilay and to Mr. Ramesh Abhishek.
Thank you, Madhura. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have a great panel with us today. You heard in the first session about how India has moved in the ease of doing, World Bank ease of doing banking. We've always known India for a large consumption economy. I think one thing that has really changed in the last 2 years has been the focus on enabling business environment which is better, which is less of red tape, and it's an investment climate, changing investment climate. So it was not a surprise that we did have a 30-point jump. But 2 points that really stand out. India is a large and complex country, and yet for such a large country to have a 30-point jump is something credible. It shows that actions and reforms are working. Second important point which I just wanted to highlight before I come to the panel is we've had improvement across all the 10 parameters on ease of doing business. And improvement in those parameters essentially is a reflection of India moving towards good practices, international practices. So it's a big change, and the architect at the center of this change has been Mr. Ramesh Abhishek, Secretary of the ICBC. So let me start by asking him, how has this journey been, what has he been doing to make this a reality?
Thank you, Nilay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This whole journey on ease of doing business started after the government under our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, took over in May 2014. Before that, I don't know if people really gave it much thought to this entire idea of ease of doing business. But because Prime Minister had committed to the nation that we are going to make India the easiest place to do business in, he also committed that we will convert red tape into red carpet. So the message was very clear to everybody, all public servants, that you can't do business the way you have been doing it all these decades. So that was really the turning point. And what has happened in the last 3 years and 3.5 years is that a kind of ease of doing business movement has started. People who were earlier complicating things, adding more processes, paperwork, they are now busy dismantling those which they had actually created all these decades. So now we are finding that it's not only we are working on the World Bank Doing Business report and its 10 parameters in which we have made this significant jump, and the kind of reform that we have done and we are doing, we have no doubt that in the next 1 and 2 years, the jump will be even more significant. That we are quite sure of that. But of course, we have to work hard. Second is that the states, the states are so important in a country like India. We have a federal setup, and the states are competing with each other to create business-friendly climate. Ultimately, the businesses are set up in the states. Factories, businesses, unit approvals, there are so many delays, enforcement of contracts, registering property. Most of these things happen in the states only. And because DIBP started a ranking of states on ease of doing business that was a public portal in last 2 years, it has set off a huge competition among them to do better. They are also learning from each other, they are actually helping each other. So that's another big piece of it. You can see how states are doing. And this year we are also taking public feedback about the claims of the states for having done reforms. Then you look at other, recently Prime Minister said in the event that we had organized when CEO World Bank was here, that he would like all public authorities, government departments, regulators to identify international best practices on whatever services they provide, whatever functions they do, and then try to align their own practices with the international best practices. I think that's a very significant statement from our Prime Minister, and that is something that we intend to pursue. But I think the main change has been the change of mindset. The mindset that we need to make it easy is the critical change, I would say. And then this entire idea of technology-driven governance, that no one should be required to visit a government office, no one should be required to submit any paper document. So it should be seamless, whether it's customs, single window for facilitating trade that was set up. Risk-based inspections. Earlier, 100% of the goods which were imported were being checked. Now the risk management parameters are being used to check only 10% in most commodities, except in some sensitive things like food or drugs. Similarly, construction permit was being given in maybe for 300, 400 days. Now it is being done within 60 days. Power connection was being given. We are today pretty May 29. We have improved 108 ranks in last 3 years on power connection. We did not have insolvency bankruptcy code. We have one now. Across the board, there have been massive changes, and this is a work in progress. We realize that we have so much more to do. We totally realize that. So I'll stop here. I'm sure I would like to hear others. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Highlight one point that the Secretary made is the change of mindset, and that's been really, really great. I mean, KK and Jan, personally, I'm very privileged to be working with him, and I remember my last meeting and 2 points that stood out and which brings to front what we mean by changing mindset. He said, I want your team to start questioning us more. That's very rare that a senior government official says to a consultant that you need to question us more. And the other point that really stood out for me was I gave a suggestion of saying we need to change the capacity building at the grassroots level. He says, well, that's agreed, but why does businesses actually need to go to the grassroots level? How can we use technology? And I think that is a massive change in mindset that we've witnessed, and we see changes of it. But with that, if I could come to you, Anita, you're the second largest pension fund in Canada. You've invested more than $3 billion in India. What have been the changes that you've seen, and how do you see the investment climate in India vis-a-vis some of the other countries in the region that you invest in?
Thank you very much, Nidhi, and thank you to ICBC for inviting me to be in this panel. I actually will have to say that for us, India is the priority country for our investments. And we have put our money where our mouth is by having invested now $4.5 billion in India across all sectors: infrastructure, real estate, listed equities, private equity, as well as fixed income. So there is really a very strong commitment to India from CBQ. So the question why India is asked not just within CBQ, for us this is a big step, but also by fellow pension funds from Australia, from UK. I think now this has become part of my job to speak to different pension funds from around the world to say why has CBQ been so bullish on India. So what we have gone to is really the fundamentals of India. Earlier, Minister Champagne mentioned democracy, and this is very big, very important for us. Of course, the demographics was also mentioned in terms of the young population, but I would like to also stress the innovation and entrepreneurship, which is part of our topic today. A third is in terms of really we do see policy reform, and we've been very fortunate because as investors we took an early call on the stressed asset space. We invested with Edelweiss and we are equity holders in the asset reconstruction company. I remember going to our investment committee, and one of the big debates in that investment committee was on the regulatory framework. And I must thank Mr. Abhishek because we have seen the bankruptcy code, we've seen the amendment to the banking regulations, we've seen the setup of the NCLTA, and we really do hope that that will move in the direction, in fact, strengthening the regulators, and this is, since I have you right next to me, I would say strengthening the regulatory capacity in India, especially with regards to new laws, because at the end of the day, it's in the implementation. And I would say that India has a very good track record from the electricity sector, and the Central Electricity Regulatory Authority, for example, is an excellent example of, I would say, best-in-class regulators. So similarly, in other sectors, we would look towards that. We've invested also a lot in infrastructure, particularly in renewable energy. And India is, for us, a very important investment destination because CBQ has become the first Canadian pension fund to make an explicit commitment to climate change by reducing the carbon intensity of our portfolio by 50% by 2020. This is really a very tall order to all of us who carry out investments, and we have used it, in fact, to make the case that growth markets, in particular India, can really present us with a lot of opportunities of increasing our investments in renewable energy. We are, in North America, the largest financiers with over 12,000 megawatts financed of wind, offshore and onshore, as well as solar. And in India, we've supported the largest solar platform, Azure Power, and we hope to take it to a global stage of at least 5,000 megawatts. We also see a lot of improvements in the real estate space, which is an important space for us. We've invested close to 600 million, and we hope to double that amount. And the RERA, the Real Estate Regulation Act, is another good development. The last point I'd say is on GST. So we've made an investment with TVS Logistics, which is, as I call it, an Indian multinational. It's an Indian company that is now has a global presence with operations in the US, UK, Europe, Asia, as well as India. And actually the GST has helped us to see the potential. We are already seeing that in the turnaround time of trucks, there's been a 25% increase in efficiency. I know that there is a lot of short-term pain of not knowing rates and changing rates, but in the medium to long term, and as long-term investors, we feel that this move of having introduced GST is actually the right move for India. And the last point I'd like to make is on digitization. So we are investors along with CBPIB, which is the largest Canadian pension fund, in Kotak Bank. And it's amazing for us and a lot of our colleagues in Canada, where we've seen Kotak in 1 quarter increase its customer base by 1 million, adding to its 8 million customer base because of digitization. And it's through an initiative called 811, which was sort of looking at demonetization as a turning point for really moving to more cashless and digital transactions. Just to give you a data point before I stop, in the US, the online transactions are in the range of about 125 billion. In China, it's 9 trillion. India lies in between, and I see huge potential for us as an economy to really transform from a digital perspective as well. These are all the reasons why India is very important for us.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And I think just 2 points that really stand out is the number of regulatory changes and regulation that India has not just brought in, but effectively implemented in the last 2 years. And the fact that we now are the largest FDI endpoint in the world, and getting reflected in 60 billion odd dollars that India has got. With that, if I could come to you, Sudhir, Bombardier, you represent Bombardier in India. You have had 2 manufacturing facilities, and one of them for a very long period of time. You've seen the changes. Would we be interested, the participants would be very interested to know your experience here in India and what has really changed.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. Thank you, Julia. So just, I've actually been with Bombardier only 2 months, but I've been working in India now and having returned here about 12 years. And I worked also for 4 years towards the end of the 90s. And so I've got sort of a 20-year experience in India over this period. And having been an automotive guy for 32 years, I'm a trained guy only for 2 months. I tend to look at sort of Gemba, which is the bottom, which is the action as it's happening on the ground. And I guess the thing that I can say about this is the following, and tying it back to Bombardier. 2007 or 8, Bombardier was looking to set up its second factory, coincidentally in Baroda, which is the home state of our current Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, and to build on another factory that existed for about 50 years. And you may not believe it, but in 18 months, the factory was basically operational. A month after that, the first coach was produced, and basically we were in business. So even a decade ago, with the right administrative intent, things were possible. I think what's happened is that a lot of this mentality has spread across the country. And what I can tell you from point of view of the Gemba view, back in those days, I used to worry about trucks coming into the factory, again coincidentally in Gujarat, and we didn't know where the truck was. Today, you can be pretty much assured that if you have an outlook for when the truck will land up at your plant site, it will probably be met. I think there's a very, very high probability, and you can track it and so forth. So private sector has done a lot to globalize the methods of working in India, and that now corresponding with the government's strong intent to make things easier, more transparent. I think India is in a great place. I know we've only moved up 30 places in the rankings, etc. But I have never, ever had any problem getting an appointment with a government official to make a case for whatever help we needed. The point was, did you have a case to make? And were you clear about it? Were you passionate about it? And were you confident enough to leave a package of papers on the desk of the government official that this is what my situation is? 100% of the time, it has been tremendous responsiveness. So that is the reality of India on the ground. I think many of you are looking as potential future investors. You may hear about something was said about real estate, land acquisition, power, etc. Many may not be aware, if you're into manufacturing, that there are industrial estates run by the state government, typically all over the country. You can pretty much walk in and start your construction within a few days. I'm not talking weeks, I'm talking days. And just the last thing I'll say before we move on is the problem is not in the environment, it's not in the external world. 90% of the time, what you'll find is the problem is inside your companies. It is not about ease of, is India easy to work in? At the ground level, my view is yes. Are you able to understand how to work in India? Adapt yourself, not in a negative way, not in a crooked way, and know how to operate in India. That I think is the real issue. And that is where multinationals are failing. So I think you have to look in the mirror more than looking at India to decide if it's an easy place to do business in or not.
Thank you so much, Vivek. When you spoke about reflecting on India, about 10 days back we had the World Food India, and I was part of a meeting where a large investor was having a discussion with one of the chief minister, and they were signing an MOU. So the question was, how long does it take for you to get your factory up and running? And he says, our experience has been about 18 months, and he says, that's a very long time for a food processing industry. He says, no, but typically 8 to 9 months is what it takes to do land. And he says, what if I do it with you in 3 months' time? And that's what has changed about India, wherein states are actually aggressively saying, we're going to work with you for your timelines, and are you ready to meet our timelines? With that, if I could come to you, Somesh, you've been in the power sector for a long time. As Mr. Namesh Abhishek mentioned, India has jumped 108 places in reform in that particular sector in the last 3 years. What have we done, and what's your view on that?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mundra. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am representing the power sector because we are operating in India for 98 years as a power utility company. We have our operation in generation, distribution, trading, transmission. Other than doing business easily in India, there are some parameters in general, like land, digitalization. I will say something about specific to power. See, the game changing of the power industry is the Electricity Act 2003. It is the main game changer of the entire electricity business. And we have seen that after implementation of the Electricity Act 2003, which covers most of the generation, transmission, distribution and trading, there is a change in the competitive environment of India in power sector. Because the particular Electricity Act do justice with the consumer protection, SOP, regulation. Similarly, it's an attractive thing for the investor. At the end of the day, competition has increased like anything. One or two examples of power sector today, why it is an Indian lucrative thing, because power is a basic thing for all industry. So we have seen now, but as you know that in the Electricity Act 2003, more than 1 megawatt power consumer, you can buy power through the nexus. And this entire reform in the policy, so it is because it's only possible because now the national grid is increasing its network day by day. Not necessarily that I need a power like Haryana. I can take my power from Tamil Nadu. So the national grid is connected totally, and as a flexibility of a bulk consumer, more than 1 megawatt, I can buy power competitive bidding from anywhere. And the generator also, we are getting option now to set the power in national grid. So they are not waiting for the PPA to sign by somebody and allow the PPA somebody will buy power. It is very good for the generating company also, because they are taking the umbrella of utilizing this national network, open access, and selling power anywhere. Like we are a power company, a distribution company, we are distributing power in some part of the country. Not necessarily that we are buying power from one place. So it's the first one. Second thing which is very important, that all the natural resources now, particularly this Govt thermal plant, the national resources now, e-auction is taking place, and the policy being streamlined. So all this basic mineral, including coal, there are a lot of sea changes taking place in the coal policy, in auction process. It is easier for all people to get this. So after implementation of this Electricity Act, where there will be justice with the consumer protection, reverse handling, and also the industrial track, India is one of the best places in terms of the power sector stability now. And you've seen that anywhere, and also somebody talking about the single window. In West Bengal, like other parameters, every state we have parameters for easing up doing business, and central government monitoring that. In West Bengal, Chief Minister directly monitoring the parameters of single window, so which covers your pollution, power, energy, including land bank. Now mostly all the state government, they have the land bank, so we have grossly eliminated the problem of land acquisition now. The state government, they have their land. If somebody interested to set up a power industry or any industry, from the land bank they can allocate that. And immediately within 15-20 days time, you can put application and start everything. And finally, power sector is always there. You can supply power any corner of India through open access.
Thank you so much. I mean, clearly a lot of changes that have happened. So if I could come back to, as you've been reminding all of us, 30 jump in rank is good, but our aim is to get to 50. And I know DIPP is looking at far more reforms coming through. You also briefly spoke about state competing with each other, which is DIPP is trying. I think the audience would really like to know the roadmap that you've actually set out for more reforms to come as far as ease of doing business is concerned.
I'd like to share with you a few things that shows the new mindset. The way GST has been formulated and implemented in India, it's a great example. I'd like to draw your attention to the process. See, for the first time, central government and all the state governments, they ceded their constitutional authority to levy taxes to a GST council. The GST council does everything now. It's a unique development. It's a country with so much of diversity in terms of political parties in different states. They all agreed that we need to have a GST in the country. The fact that GST is already bringing about so much of improvement, cascading effect of taxes is gone. We have a single economic union. Goods are being now transported much faster. The warehousing and logistics will be a major area of development in the coming years. This is definitely a big area for investors to look at. But the way it has been done is going to make a big difference. And I would also like to draw your attention to the approach of this government. They are not looking at only doing those reforms and changes which will give them political dividend within 5-year term. They are looking at medium and long-term changes that are required for the country, even if it may be politically a bit challenging in the short run. I think that is the kind of audacity of reforms, I call it, that this government is looking at. Infrastructure, you know, the development of ports, inland waterways, coastal shipping. I mean, it's not going to happen in 2, 3, 4 years, but then you have to start the process. You have to, we are investing so much on highways, on railways, on the entire infrastructure. See, we have to reduce our logistics cost. So the government's approach is that we must do whatever is required for the country. The ease of doing business is, we are not doing it to improve our rankings. Rankings are only a reflection of the work that is being done. It is giving us the necessary push. I'll just give you another example of an investment that came from Canada actually last year. There was a security clearance and it was brought to our notice by the company that the security clearance, sometimes the agencies, they mention they make some observations that you please look at this, our company has not done this, that, and the ministry was not taking any decision on that for some time. When it came to our notice and we brought it to the notice of the government, they actually set up a committee under Secretary IPP, which is myself at present, consisting of all the other secretaries concerned, to take a decision in all such cases. We held a meeting of that committee within 2 or 3 weeks of that order, and it was cleared and the investment took place. So the matter of the decision making, look at the speed of decision making. Look at the, if the government immediately responded. Similarly on GST, a lot of feedback came to the government about tax rates and process and return filing and all that. Look at the speed with which the government is responding. I think it is unprecedented. When you take major decisions or because of the legacy issues, there will be roadblocks, there will be bottlenecks. But look at the responsiveness of the government to address the problems of the investors. I think these are some of the examples. Going forward, see, we have done more than 120 reforms which were not recognized by the World Bank this year. Because it's a process and we respect that. The stakeholders have to report to the World Bank, the users, that actually these reforms have taken place on the ground, which is the way it should be. But there is so many more to be done. And as I mentioned, our World Bank doing business report work is only a very small percentage of the total doing business work that we are doing. We need to make our country a very simple place to work, do business in. And we are conscious of it. And I think it's a work in progress. A lot of work has been done, is being done, and will be done. But look at the investment facilitation that is being done. You mentioned about the states. There are so many states which are very proactive now. And we did not have the investment promotion agency in the Government of India. No country will believe it. In a country like ours with so much of potential, we did not have an investment promotion agency. Now we have one. Invest India was incorporated as a company long time back, but it was virtually extinct. We revived it. In a short period of 2 years, they are working on almost 500 specific deals on more than $80 billion US, 80. And we are seeing so much of interest among foreign investors, because foreign investors look at things from medium and long-term perspective. They are looking at the demand that is there in India, which is going to be in India, and the opportunities in the next 5, 10, 15 years. They are not looking at quarterly GDP numbers. Because when the government is doing so much of disruptive changes and reforms and transformation, many of these things you have to take in your stride. But that is the kind of work that is being done. We are now taking up with the ministries and states the specific issues of companies, of the countries. We are having sectoral roundtables on what is ailing the chemical industry or food processing industry, what are the regulatory issues that are holding things up, which projects are stuck in the states. This is the kind of facilitation that is being done. So basically we are preparing the ground for a new India, as our Prime Minister says, by 2022.
Thank you so much, Arvind. If I could just add one more point. Sir spoke about roundtables. In the last 1 month, the Prime Minister has had 2 roundtables, one in the oil and gas sector with more than 30 CEOs from global oil and Indian oil and gas companies that he's spent more than a couple of hours just listening to the issues. He recently had that for the food industry as well. So this aspect of taking feedback and making change starts with the top itself. I think that might have come to you once more. You spoke about renewable energy, you've invested in Azure. I mean, this is one sector where we've seen a huge amount of interest from investors. Would request you to talk a little bit more about what's driving this investment.
Thank you. So we see the targets and the demand for renewable energy in India very clearly, both in solar as well as in the wind, and hopefully over time in hydro as well. Our interest is one, because we have the experience of having invested and done very well in terms of our investments. So we have actually earned returns, steady, stable returns over the long term through our investments in North America and Europe. So we are hoping that we can replicate that experience over here. That's, I would say, the first reason. The second is that we have been very selective in our choice. So we do look at off-taker and credit risk. One thing that I always say whenever I talk about CDPQ's investments is to remember whose money we are investing. This is the money of, ordinary citizens. This is their pension money. So we have to be very, very cognizant that wherever we are investing this money, A, that we don't lose money, and secondly, that we do make the returns that we are targeting. So we are very selective in terms of, and one thing I can say, for example, of Azure, is that a large proportion of their offtake is from SECI, which is the Central Solar Energy Entity, as well as from NTPC. And they're very selective in terms of the states. And this is an area where, from my previous life in the World Bank, we have been working on fixing the financials for the DISCOMs in the various states in India. And I think this really goes to the heart of what is plaguing the power sector to take it to the next level. So that's one. The second is, I would say that there is also usually a sort of gold rush, and today there was an article by the MD of Tata Power in the sort of correction that may be needed in the solar and wind tariffs that have come down quite a bit. And there is a fear that, if there is senseless bidding or not based on fundamentals, this could lead to another issue of, additional non-performing loans in the power sector, especially the renewable sector. But as Sudhir mentioned, I think here the responsibility really lies with the private sector to be much more selective. And one of the things that we've discussed in abundance with our existing and potential partners is, let's not just go for scale for the sake of scale, but really look at sensible bidding, sensible approach, and if it means that you sit out for 1 or 2 rounds, so be it. So that's the approach that we've taken in the renewable sector.
Thank you. I know we have constraint of time, but if I could just follow up with you, Sumesh. I just spoke about distribution companies. Uday has been one particular reform that the Govt of India has brought in. It's been a year, which really impacts the financial distribution company. How have you seen that move along, and what's the investment opportunity that we have there?
Thank you. There is a tremendous investment opportunity for the distribution sector, because perhaps you will appreciate with me, for any of the sector, any industry, 70 to 80% requirement power is from power sector. So the cost of a particular product, 60% goes to the power sector. And ultimately the finishing thing is the distribution company. So the present model, as per the Electricity Act 2003, there is an option for the distribution franchise, the option for the primary license. These are all good things, which already is part of our regulation, should be implemented heavily with the government level, so that competition will increase. Only thing, as per our sector distribution we are thinking, unless you increase competition in power, in the form of parallel license, in the form of other captive power, so industry will not be benefited. I'm giving a small example. We have a company for 98 years. We are perhaps the only parallel licensee holder in Asansol area. If you go to that Asansol area in West Bengal and Bihar, Jharkhand, there are 3 players. West Bengal, WBPCL, our company, and also the East. So there is always a competition in the rates. And if you go to healthier side, we are giving a now appealing to the government of West Bengal to give us more and more option for that. My concern is, unless you increase the competition in the distribution business, industry will not benefit it, and that is happening now. So government is thinking seriously for the parallel license, and when the parallel license will be there, competition will come. I can give you the cheaper power, obviously industry will come there. So entire investment opportunity model depends on how much we are serious in terms of parallel license and captive generations. And that we are working that, and I'm optimistic government in state level people and also the government, the central government, they are taking very seriously for the parallel license proposition. It will continue like this.
Very quickly, Sudhir, if I can come to you. Railways is another sector. We have a new Minister of Railways. He's spoken about a large investment. I know Bombardier is looking at the sector. Your thoughts on the investment potential and what exactly Bombardier is doing there?
So the Railways is committed about $150 billion worth of investment over the next 5 years. We're actively participating in it, and I've moved from the automotive industry to railways for a reason. I do passionately believe that mass transportation is important for India. I spoke to a lot of people before making the move, a lot of government officials, and every one of them said it's not scary to work with the government, and in 2 months I can assure you that that's true. I worked for several years in General Motors purchasing, and I can assure you that the purchasing processes, the sourcing processes of organizations like DMRC, that's the Delhi Metro, which is doing a lot of the metros in the country, is probably better in some ways than what I myself was implementing in what was then the world's largest automotive company. So that is the extent of professionalism that exists in the government sector in terms of ease of doing business. There's tremendous commitment to it, and it's really very, very transparent. It's very transparent, and it's a question of how you go about it and just doing the right thing and with great perseverance. I just want to say one thing. I mean, I know I possibly came across as sort of, a person who says such wonderful things despite, being the most polluted city in the country. So where's the disconnect? I think what we're talking about here is the ease of doing business. I'm not talking about the quality of living. That's I think the topic for the next couple of days, of technology and how technology and transportation, etc., can improve the quality of living as well. The fact of the matter is that for those of you who do want to come to India, it is a relatively easy place to invest compared to most. Speak English, not French. Okay? Sorry, French Canadians. And just go at it with very selected, high quality selected local talent, and you will succeed in the country. It's not a difficult place to do business.
I just may mention that I had seen your factory last year in Vadodara. It's a great facility, and it's a great example of Make in India. Not only making for India, but making for the world, exporting to countries like Australia, and adhering to the highest quality norms. And now we have made a provision that those who are manufactured in India will get priority in supplying to the government also. So congratulations for that excellent factory and the work that you are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Abhishek. I just want to say one more thing. India is a big export hub. I've come from the automotive industry. My former company, General Motors Corporation, exists in India only in manufacturing today. It chose not to compete in other sectors for reasons I don't want to get into, but it's exporting from India. The most recent company, Skoda, VW Group, is exporting, I think, almost half of its production from Pune to all over the world. So it's a great export place. Renault Nissan, another company that I was running for a while, Renault, exporting from Chennai all over the world through the Indian ports. High quality materials, high productivity, great labor. Sorry if I'm sounding like a PR guy for India. I'm not. I'm just trying to tell you the facts, okay?
You don't have to be sorry for that at all. I know we're running short of time, but in case anybody has one or two questions, we've got a secretary and our panelists more than happy to do any one or two questions if anybody has. Okay. Can you start to
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Rupa Kumar Basri. I represent the British Columbia government here in India. And it was a very interesting discussion, I think really useful for all our companies that are here today. My question is particularly to Mr. Rao. He spoke about his perspective about how business in India is more about understanding how to work here rather than talking about the ease or not of doing business here. If you could just build upon that a little further to help us identify, what other factors you attribute your success to India in, I think that would be really helpful.
I think strong localization, having the right people and the right mindset. I can tell you now, it's been several years. I took on Carlos Ghosn, one of the gurus of the automotive industry, over dinner in Dumpington ITC as to how to do business in India. Okay, today Renault is the leading European manufacturer in this country. It wasn't easy to make it that way. It was a 1-hour intense debate where I put my career on the line to convince him about how Renault had to approach India compared to how Nissan was approaching India at that point in time. You need people who are passionate, who need people who are willing to take responsibility, who are willing to take risks, not risk from a stupid way. Okay? But people who actually understand, are willing to give a plan, black and white, and say, I will stand behind that plan. And if that plan doesn't work, here's my resignation letter, execute it whenever you want. You need people like that. You don't need bureaucrats who will come and who will behave like postmen, who will say headquarters decided something, you told me to do something, it's not working. Hello? That's not your job. Pick the right people. There are plenty of people who get amazing salaries in multinationals and who do 1/10 the work of people working for Indian companies. With zero risk, they sleep at night. Executives working for Indian companies don't sleep at night because their performance expectations are extremely high. So you need to understand how to perform, how to hold people accountable, get the right people, and as one of the ministers said in the earlier thing, kick butt. It's not for the faint-hearted. Find the right people and do the right thing. You don't have to dip into your pocket to give 1 rupee of corruption. I can promise you I've never, ever indulged in corruption in this country in my 17 years of working here. Not once.
That's good.
That's a great point to ask the Secretary for his closing remark. Essentially what you're saying is perform or perish, and that's the mantra. With that, I could request you for your final comment.
I have mentioned that Invest India is our investment promotion agency. It is run by our department, funded by DIPP fully. Secretary DIPP is the chairman of Invest India. We have some very, very smart people working for Invest India in the last 2 years. They are among the best in the world. And they are providing end-to-end services. We then provide you with whatever information you require, any meetings that you may like to do, approvals that you need, and it is stuck in the central ministries or regulators or state governments. The state governments and state investment promotion agencies also work very closely with them. So some of my colleagues are here, Suja Chandi, Vice President, and we have some more people. So please get in touch with them, and whatever information you require about Indian investing opportunities, specific issues, or any facilitation that you need, please let them know. And our department is very proactive. We work very closely with everybody in the government to make things easier. There will be always issues in business. There will be never a time when there will be no issue whatsoever. But the sincerity to address those issues is the really key. And this we find not only in center but also in the states. And now regulators are also getting into the same mindset. So all of you are most welcome.
Thank you so much. Just a round of applause for our panel. Thank you so much.
As I said earlier, we are not breaking between sessions because of the time constraint. So anybody who wants to have a cup of tea or coffee, it's running constantly on the side along with some sandwiches and cake. Please help yourself and keep seated. While we prepare for our next session, I would really like to, first of all, thank our gold sponsors who have made it possible for us to host this convention today. First of all, being EDC, the Export Development Corporation of Canada, who has supported us and has been a constant and has been a partner. I would also like to thank the Government of West Bengal, the IT department who is here today and has been a sponsor to us, and the India Power Corporation who just spoke as well, Mr. Sujoy. While we prepare for our next session, I would like to welcome Mr. Benoit Deneau, President and CEO of the Export Development of Canada. EDC helps Canadian companies go, grow, and succeed in the international business, and Mr. Deneau has played a key role in facilitating the same. May I request Benoit to please come and say a few words.
Yeah, first. And someone forgot a phone here. Is it yours? Okay. Hello, good day everyone. Can you hear me well in the back? Because I know there's a lot of voice noise. Everything's good? Okay, well thank you for being here. And it's a real pleasure and wonderful to be back in India. As you know, we cover essentially the globe. We have 20 offices around the world, and it's my second time this year in India. I was here in May, and it's fantastic to reconnect with the business community here. And I would like to thank the ICBC for today's event. I see a lot of people, it's quite impressive. And I will also want to thank them for their flexibility, because I know the program is kind of fairly fluid. I really want to thank them for their flexibility. So I'm just going to take about 10 minutes of your time today. And I would like to talk about the value and power of relationships. So I'm a very lucky person. I'm blessed with many strong and close relationships. I've been with my wife for more than 35 years, and I still maintain a close relationship with a lot of friends from university. So these are like 35 years plus relationships. And that despite me moving to the US at one point, and I'm originally from Montreal, so moving to now Ottawa, where I live today. And all these relationships are important for me. Each is different, of course, and each person brings a different set of characteristics and a unique resume with them. And of course, you come to know how to approach the people in different situations. So, for example, my work colleagues know damn well that I have no issues doing email work at 5 o'clock in the morning, but if you ask me to look at an investment paper for a transaction at 8 o'clock at night, I mean, something doesn't work, I won't do it. So this is something I was thinking as I was preparing for this trip, and I think there's a lot in common between the relationships we have between individuals in our lives, whether they're family or friends, and relationships we have between companies and between countries. So the first and most important thing they have in common is that they require work and attention. And great relationships do not just happen. They're actively created and shaped by the efforts of the people in them. Great relationships, in short, take a lot of work. Canada and India are two very different countries with great and different histories and extraordinary diverse cultures. And though we are also on opposite side of the globe, ours is a strong and enduring relationship. It's a relationship, I believe, built on very hard and very smart work. A lot of it has been done by the people like all of you in this room, along with the companies, associations, and governments that you all represent. EDC has been focused on the Indo-Canadian relationship for several years now. India is a priority market for Canada, and the reasons for that are pretty obvious. You look at India is expected to continue having one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and that's a very good reason. And EDC has recognized this, and we've been developing the Indo-Canadian relationships for quite some time now. So we opened a first permanent representation in Delhi back in 2005, and 2 years later we opened in Mumbai. And our presence here is backed by a very active and growing portfolio, which includes over $4.5 billion in exposure through the country, and is diversified through a great range of industries. That includes oil and gas, ICT, clean tech, infrastructure, and power. Since 2009, Canadian exports to India have almost doubled. And between 2013 and last year, our business in India has grown by more than 25%. In fact, last year, for the first time, the total business we did, so that's the total of financing and insurance business, surpassed $2 billion. And we believe that for 2017, this number will be even higher. And while our top 10 clients in India exported for more than 60% of that $2 billion, the other 40% was shared by 340 small and medium-sized companies. So I'm going to repeat that, 340 small and medium-sized companies. So lots of you can recognize yourself in this number. And it's that end of the spectrum, the SME side, the small and medium side, that EDC is so excited about. And this is where we think that there are a lot of prospects. Canadian SMEs are innovative, they're highly adaptable, and they're ready to bring targeted solutions to a wide range of business needs here in India. But we also have, and we know that these smaller companies can face a particular challenge breaking into the India market. India's business culture has its own distinct character, and for a Canadian-based company, developing connections with foreign buyers can be time-consuming, and also, as you know, can be quite expensive. So this is where our trade development financing approach has come into play. So in 2016, EDC closed 13 major financing deals with Indian corporations. This is to help build more Indo-Canadian connections and relationships. This work has included financing deals with companies like Bharat Petroleum, Indian Oil Corporation, and Reliance Industry. These relationships are important for EDC, of course. But where the rubber really hits the road is for the 46 Canadian companies that we introduced to these major Indian buyers. These are the relationships that deliver the greatest value. Of course, building these connections is never a one-sided effort. They are the result of multi-phased collaboration. EDC has been watching closely developments since the rollout of the Indian government long-awaited GST program, for instance. Obviously, there has been some challenges, but there is without doubt great cause for optimism. The responsiveness of bodies such as the GST Council to market and industry concerns has been encouraging. And I believe we can have great confidence that the transition to consistent GST rates across all of India's states and Union's territories will be a success not only for India, but for everyone looking to invest here and looking at doing business in India. We understand as well the growing pains that India has endured in the implementation of demonetization. And whatever the challenges that have been, we remain convinced that the goals of this policy remain worthy, and that in the long run, India will find its way to achieving those ends. We're also encouraged by the decision of the Indian government to reduce its shareholding of publicly listed companies and banks. We agree with you that this will unlock a lot of value and generate greater efficiencies. We also welcome the government, the announcement of the infusion of $32 billion into public sector banks. That increased liquidity will go a long way to enhancing business fundamentals in the market. But there are other exciting developments. So late in 2016, I mean, that's our version at least, EDC in India made history. Okay, that's the EDC version. But it began with a change in policy, and will lead, we believe, to the opening of many new doors in the Indo-Canada relationship. And that policy change was a decision by the India Reserve Bank to open up India to lending by offshore foreign financial institutions in Indian currency. So we're very proud to say that EDC became the first offshore financial institution to sign a loan, a transaction, under this new regime. Not insignificant as well was that we were the first export credit agency to do this. The loan, which was equivalent to $15 million US, was signed with a company by the name of Infrastructure Leasing and Financial Services Bank. I'm sure you know that. And that was under our POL mandate, POL facility mandate. And this initiative is fairly new, so roughly a year ago. It has already generated $2 million of procurement for four Canadian exporters. So, small amount, but lots of potential. These are, we believe, only the first small indicators of the kind of success this lending approach will be able to generate. That's for Canadian companies and for their buyers in the Indian market. And on top of that, the initiative on currency has also prompted another exciting development for EDC as well in the future, because we're currently looking at opening a new account in rupees to facilitate a large number of potential near-term deals for the Canada-India market, where we have identified an immediate demand for more than $300 million in value. So we feel that with this ability to transact in local currency, we'll be better placed to lend alongside other banks, which act as agent banks in India, such as the State Bank of India, ICICI, and Axis Bank. And one final area of investment that I would want to mention is an investment not only, of course, of capital, but an investment in simple collaboration. Over the last few years, EDC has signed a number of protocols with major Indian corporates and companies. So a protocol is very simple. Essentially, it's a strategic agreement between an Indian corporate and EDC to collaborate. So essentially, EDC looks at the Canadian footprint of the company, whether or not it's how much the company is buying from Canada or how big the footprint of that company is in Canada. And we actually derive from that a pool of capital that is available for that company to deploy where they need it, with a view that we will work together to identify more procurement from Canada. And I'm very proud of these agreements because as much as any financial deal, they are a real testament to the quality of the connections built and to be built between EDC's team and our Indian corporate counterparts here in India. And the beauty is that these protocols provide a showcase for Canadian capabilities while they contribute to the international supply chains of Indian corporates. So, you know, in conclusion, I began my address by speaking about the power and value of personal relationships. And I would like to end on the same note. I hope that over the last few minutes, we have all been reminded of how rich and exciting the Indo-Canadian relationship is. And I would like to conclude here by reminding us of one of the most important engines of this relationship, which is the human engine. Today, more than 1 million Canadians claim their heritage with roots in this country. Born in India or of parents from here, they bring to Canada its history and its many cultures. And from the perspective of the business developer, they bring the knowledge of this place, its people, and customs. As many Canadian business people are learning, and I include EDC in this one of the fastest ways to find that right number to call, say, in Mumbai, might be well to start by knowing the right number of an expatriate Indo-Canadian. EDC, along with so many other partners, have worked extremely hard to build the bonds between our two countries. It's exciting to be in a room of people so determined to continue this great work. So we heard a little bit earlier from Air Canada, so the flight time between Toronto and New Delhi is about 14 hours, 13 and a half, or maybe 14 and a half. But honestly, nothing closes that gap like the trust and the experience of a strong relationship. So I would like to end by thanking you. I want to briefly introduce the EDC team with Vibhav, Simonel, and Nigel right here. And we're looking forward to connecting with you. And thank you very much for your attention.